When this figure appeared, Chao Yuan and Bailey Pongpong's gazes simultaneously focused. Such powerful spiritual energy. As the figure carrying the black coffin approached, a spiritual pressure nearly reaching the ceiling of human capability surged forth. The pristine white coat was stained with mysterious fresh blood of unknown origin. The quiet young man held a scalpel in one hand and a giant beast's head in the other, creating an eerie fusion of bloodthirsty aura and scholarly temperament. On his fair face, those eyes filled with gray intent seemed capable of perceiving the trajectories of all things in the world. Just one glance sent an inexplicable chill through the night. And Qingyu, still immersed in his dissection state, seemed to realize the unusual nature of his condition. He pinched the bridge of his nose, took a deep breath, and the gray intent in his eyes receded like the tide. At the same time, the terrifying pressure surrounding him also disappeared. Bailey Pangpang and Chao Yuan exchanged glances, their eyes filled with shock. In just over half a month, Qingyu had already grown to this level? Both of them had broken through to the Klein realm earlier than Qingyu, but now they were not only surpassed by him but by a significant margin. The current Qingyu gave them a feeling of unfathomable depth. Truly a monster. Qingyu quickly walked up to Bailey Pangpang and Chao Yuan, his brows furrowed as he asked, "What happened to Qie?" The two quickly recounted the situation to Qingyu. Disappeared in the mist? A white shadow floated out of the coffin and Jiang Er's voice came through the speaker. "This is troublesome. The mist is so vast, how will we find him?" Qingyu stood in place, deep in thought for a long time, until a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. "Perhaps I can try." Hearing these words, joy immediately appeared on the faces of Bailey Pangpang and the others. He patted Qingyu's shoulder and smiled, as expected of our vice-captain, reliable in critical moments. Qingyu smiled somewhat shyly, then spoke seriously, "I need to prepare some things." "No problem, just tell me what you need." The knight immediately agreed. Half a gene of Klein-level mystery fresh blood, 2 gene of star sand and some mystery bones. Though the research institute has those. Also, I need something that belongs to your president. Qingyu listed the required items one by one, leaving the knight bewildered. "Are you sure you need these things?" "Yes." "All right, I'll arrange it right away." The knight left immediately with many upper evil society members. Chao Yuan looked at the giant beast head in Qingyu's hand and asked curiously, "Qingyu, what's that?" "Oh, I left in such a hurry that I forgot to put it down." Qingyu replied somewhat embarrassedly. "By the way, your realm has increased so quickly. How long has it been?" Bailey Pangpang looked Qingyu up and down, clicking his tongue. "I'm not entirely sure myself. I was just focused on dissection, and when I came to my senses, my spiritual power had unconsciously increased." He spread his hands helplessly. "I can testify to that." A researcher who had followed Qingyu out, sporting 2 huge dark circles under his eyes, said, "Director and truly doesn't know fatigue. He dissects 24 hours a day. The rest of us researchers work in 3 shifts and still can't keep up with his pace. Truly a monster." "Oh, Jiang Er has also broken through to the boundless realm?" Bailey Pangpang noticed that Jiang Er's realm had also improved and spoke with surprise. "I'm much slower than all of you." Jiang Er lowered her head dejectedly. Currently in the Nightfall team, only Jiang Er hadn't broken through to the Klein realm. This was partly because of her young age and partly because she didn't possess the extraordinary talent of the other team members. Even though her growth rate would qualify her as a genius in any era, compared to the true monsters of the Nightfall team, she still fell somewhat short. Soon after, the knight returned with the materials Qingyu needed. Qingyu sat down right at the entrance of the research institute, placed his palm on the surface of the Klein-level mystery bones, and with a gentle shake, the bones turned into fine dust falling around him. He dipped his fingers in beast blood, mixed it with star sand and began to quickly sketch on the dust surface. Qingyu's expression was extremely serious. "Currently, I have 3 abilities I can use to find someone," Qingyu murmured to himself. "I don't know which one will be more useful. I'll try them all first." Poof. The next moment, Qingyu's back suddenly bulged and 2 pairs of arms broke through his clothes, extending out eerily. One pair of hands formed seals in the air at a dizzying speed. Another pair dipped in beast blood rapidly sketched some mysterious pattern, while the third pair pulled out a pen from somewhere and slowly drew circles on the ground. His eyes were quickly infused with gray intent, and his lips parted slightly, 3 different voices overlapping as he slowly chanted. Spirit of the pen, you are my past life, I am your present. Beast blood totem, guiding light continuing ritual. And asterisk equals percent asterisk and hashtag. At percent hashtag. Witnessing this scene, the onlookers were shocked. Damn, what divine ability is this, Qingyu? 1 head and 6 arms. Bailey Pang exclaimed in surprise. Those 6 arms should be some kind of mystery ability. 3 different methods of finding someone representing 3 abilities, which means he's using 4 abilities simultaneously. Chao Yuan couldn't help but sigh, focusing on 4 things at once, truly a monster. As Qinyu's voice gradually faded, the powder on the ground began to float and move on its own. The pen standing upright on the ground started to draw circles in one area of the powder. Look, doesn't this powder resemble a world map? It really does. Asia, Europe, Africa. It's almost identical to the world map in the mist. So that means the location the pen is marking is. Amid the exclamations of the crowd, the 2 pairs of arms on Qinyu's back returned to his body. He slowly stood up from the ground, his gaze fixed on a certain area of the map before him, the gray intent gradually receding from his eyes. Where is this? Qingyu asked, pointing to the area marked by the spirit pen. The knight crouched down, rubbing his chin with one hand, carefully examining it for a long time. Asgard. Asgard. Qingyu murmured this name, and suddenly a flash of inspiration struck his mind. That's it. You can come out now. In the deathly silent room, Lin Chia softly exhaled. A wisp of smoke mixed with his breath curled out, quickly transforming into a figure wearing a black cloak. Number 27 stood in the dim shadows and after a long while finally spoke in a low voice. There are remnants of Thunder's aura nearby. Thor's temple is right next door, of course his aura would be here. Lin Chia glanced out the window at Asgard shrouded in hazy moonlight. The most dangerous place is also the safest place. You stay here to recover. Thor won't discover you anytime soon. He turned and sat down at the table, noticing that number 27 still stood like a statue in the corner shadows, and asked curiously, "Aren't you going to sit down? In the shadows I can recover faster." Number 27 said hoarsely, then after a pause voluntarily added, "You shouldn't have risked hiding me inside your body." "Why not? I help you kill gods, you help me find someone. That's our deal. The deal doesn't require you to save me. My assassination failed. You could have abandoned me to save yourself. There was no need to take risks." After hearing number 27's solemn words, Lin Chia was stunned for a moment, then smiled helplessly. "No need to be so rigid about it. I saved you simply because it was convenient. This isn't about being rigid. It's about respecting the contract." Number 27's voice was unprecedentedly serious. "Think what you want." Lin Chia realized that this number 27 was probably quite stubborn, so he decided not to dwell on this matter further and instead asked, "By the way, how did you know your assassination failed?" Number 27 didn't speak, but silently took out a pitch-black object from under his cloak and threw it on the ground. The object rolled across the floor, exposed in the moonlight streaming through the window. Only then did Lin Chia see clearly that it was a strangely shaped skull. It was strange because the surface of the skull was uneven, as if it had been assembled from different shattered human skulls, completely lacking the symmetry of a normal human skull. Indeed, just like Loki's corpse in the underworld. Lin Chia thought to himself. "When did you infiltrate Asgard?" Lin Chia asked the question he was most concerned about. "After we parted that day, I kept watch near Asgard, but because the Rainbow Bridge was broken I couldn't enter. It wasn't until Thor and the other gods descended into the mist through the Rainbow Bridge that I took the opportunity to enter Asgard in the opposite direction." Number 27 spoke unhurriedly. "After that I kept looking for a chance to assassinate Loki, but the timing never seemed right. It wasn't until Thor brought you back from the outside world that I sensed an opportunity. While that one-armed war god was resting, I hid in his shadow. Since both he and Thor are Loki's enemies, I thought if I seized the moment when both were weakened I could kill him in one strike. However, this is the first time I've seen someone survive after having their heart pierced and head cut off. Number 27's voice fluctuated slightly, seeming both surprised and resigned. This assassination attempt was my failure, but next time I won't miss. Seeing this, Lin Chia didn't say much more, just quietly leaned against the wall and rested his mind. The morning sun fell on the ground as Lin Chia's eyelashes trembled slightly and he slowly opened his eyes. From entering the king's treasury to being brought to Asgard, his mind had been in a state of high tension. Shortly after closing his eyes to rest last night, he had fallen into deep sleep. After waking up, Lin Chia felt refreshed. His gaze swept around the room, finding that number 27 had disappeared from the corner. Number 27? Lin Chia called softly. I'm in your shadow. Number 27's voice came faintly. Has your strength recovered? About halfway. I still need some time. Lin Chia nodded and was about to say something more when his shadow suddenly wavered and number 27's voice sounded again. Thor is coming. Hearing this, Lin Chia's gaze sharpened and he immediately said, hide inside my body like yesterday. After their previous cooperation, number 27 quickly transformed into smoke and curled into Lin Chia's lungs with his breath, instantly disappearing from the room. A few seconds later, a strong knock sounded at the door. He actually knows to knock. It seems he hasn't discovered that number 27 is hiding here. Lin Chia coughed twice. Come in. The door opened and Thor's tall figure stood outside. Because the door frame was rather short compared to his size, from Lin Chia's angle he could only see Thor's neck. Miles, come out. Thor's resigned voice came from outside. Lin Chia got out of bed and quickly walked out. Thor stood outside looking haggard and somewhat listless, as if his divine power had been depleted. Lord Thor, you look. Lin Chia of course knew that Thor had spent the whole night unsuccessfully chasing number 27 and was exhausted both physically and mentally, but at this moment he still needed to pretend. I'll get straight to the point, Miles. Thor looked down, staring into his eyes and spoke seriously. You said your prophecy ability can only be used once a day, so today I want to ask you to find someone. Find someone again? Lin Chia was startled. Who? The foreign god assassin who attacked Loki yesterday. Lin Chia. Seeing Lin Chia's strange expression, Thor thought he didn't understand and continued. The mysterious foreign god who cut off Loki's head with one strike in the underworld yesterday. The Northern European War Division and I turned Asgard upside down last night but still couldn't find him. However, he must still be hiding somewhere in Asgard. I know it's difficult for you to locate a god, but just like yesterday, I only need a general direction. Lin Chia coughed twice and hesitated for a moment. Well, I can try. Then please try. Without letting Lin Chia say more, Thor's large hand patted Lin Chia's shoulder, nearly shaking number 27 out of his lungs. I wounded him badly during our fight last night. I brought a vial of his blood which might be useful for your prophecy. Lin Chia took the blood Thor handed him, his expression somewhat complicated. He then curiously asked, by the way, who exactly was that assassin yesterday? Seeing Lin Chia's question, Sol didn't hold back and honestly said, I'm still investigating his exact identity, but judging from his ability to assassinate Loki yesterday and the power of law he generated when taking action, he is very likely an extremely ancient mythological survivor. Mythological survivor? From which mythology? That mythology has no name. Sol shook his head and said, it existed when humans had not yet fully evolved into humans, embodying the most primitive fear and respect for nature, and is the foundation from which all subsequent mythologies derived. Hearing these words, Lin Chia's mind immediately conjured an image of primitive humans who had not yet mastered language and writing, kneeling on the vast earth, bowing and worshipping the flames produced when lightning struck trees. In the eyes of primitive humans, nature was both their faith and the source of their fear. They feared thunder, so they prayed to thunder. They desired fire, so they revered fire as the origin of life. In other words, the ancient mythology Sol spoke of was actually the most primitive personification of nature. As humans gradually gained wisdom and mastered language and writing, due to geographical differences, this ancient primitive mythology began to be replaced by various refined mythological systems. The primitive gods gradually withered, and their laws began to be divided among the gods corresponding to different divine realms, which led to the many divine realms we have today. So you're saying these primitive gods have all disappeared? Most of them have disappeared, but there are a few exceptions. Under the development of human wisdom, some gods began to actively transform the primitive laws they controlled into relatively modern laws, existing in the world in another form of cognition, like the outer god from last night. Him. Which god is he? The god of assassination and assassins. Soul paused. If we're not mistaken, his predecessor was the god of hunting in primitive mythology. Since writing had not been invented in that era, he had no name. The god of assassination and assassins? Lin Chia recalled the scene of number 27 instantly killing Loki yesterday, deep in thought. No wonder he killed Loki so decisively that even the many major gods present couldn't react in time. If his target hadn't been Loki, the god of mischief, but some other major god, perhaps no one could have escaped. After pondering for a moment, Lin Chia took the blood Soul gave him and walked toward the safe house. A few minutes later, Lin Chia emerged looking haggard. How did it go? Seeing this, Soul quickly asked. That assassin god seems to have something concealing his fate. Ordinary divination can't detect his location. Lin Chia's bloodless lips moved as he weakly said, I paid a certain price to barely obtain his approximate location from an hour ago. Hearing this, Soul's eyes immediately lit up. Where? In the mountains of the northernmost border of Jotunheim. Lin Chia paused, then continued, however, this was his position an hour ago and I can't guarantee he's still there, but if he's severely injured he probably hasn't left yet. The northern border of Jotunheim? Soul's brow furrowed slightly. This place was the northernmost and most remote area of the entire Norse divine realm. Even for gods, it would take nearly half a day to get there from here. Moreover, the mountain range was vast and to search every inch would take at least a day. Going there and back would take 2 days. This assassin god really knew how to pick locations. Soul scratched his head in frustration and continued asking, can your prophecy be more precise? Perhaps narrowing it down to a specific mountain peak. Before Soul could finish, Lin Chia's face paled again, and his legs nearly gave way beneath him. Soul, quick to react, caught Lin Chia with one hand. Blood seeped from the corners of Lin Chia's mouth as he smiled grimly. Lord Soul, this is already my limit. Cough, cough, cough. Lin Chia now looked like a candle in the wind, as if a slight breeze could extinguish him on the spot. Seeing this, Soul swallowed the words that had been on the tip of his tongue. All right then, you stay here and rest well. I'll take some people and go out for a while. Soul helped Lin Chia sit down on the ground, then turned and transformed into a bolt of lightning, leaving the temple presumably to gather Tyr and the Norse war division to go to the northern border of Jotunheim in search of number 27. Lin Chia lay weakly on the stone for a full 15 minutes, making sure Soul had gone far away before slowly sitting up. Success. Lin Chia's lips curled into a slight smile. The information that number 27 was in the snowy mountains of northern Jotunheim was, of course, something he had made up. After saving Sif with his prophecy in the underworld last time, Soul and the others had completely dropped their guard around him and placed great trust in his prophecies. Even if he randomly pointed to a location, Soul and the others would try to search there. Lin Chia deliberately chose the most remote place in the Norse divine realm, ensuring that Soul and the other gods would leave Asgard, giving him at least 2 days of freedom to act. In these 2 days he could accomplish many things. Indeed, his earlier decision to use the Holy Grail to increase Soul and the others' goodwill toward him had been the right choice. Having sent Soul and the other gods away, Lin Chia left the temple directly and quickly arrived near the Abyss prison he had scouted yesterday. With Soul and most of the Norse War Division's forces dispatched, now was the perfect time to enter the Abyss prison and rescue Genian. Lin Chia walked to a deserted corner nearby, pressed his hand against the void, and a brilliant magic array blossomed. A small mummy appeared out of thin air, hanging on his shoulder, babbling something. Lin Chia reached out and patted Mumu's head, softly saying, I wish for absolute concealment. A mystical light flashed from Mumu's abdomen, and Lin Chia's form began to gradually become transparent. In just a few seconds he seemed to have completely evaporated and disappeared. With Lin Chia's level, which hadn't even reached the human ceiling, trying to break into the Norse divine realm's abyss prison to rescue someone would be nothing short of a fool's dream. The only method was to borrow the wishing power of the Holy Grail, to give himself a chance to infiltrate. This absolute concealment was not simply hiding his appearance. Life force, scent, even the subtle air currents produced by movement, All would be concealed by the Holy Grail. Lin Chia was confident that under these conditions even Fenrir, the evil wolf guarding the Abyss prison, would be unable to sense his presence. Lin Chia carried Mumu on his back like a pendant and quickly headed toward the nearby prison. Deep Abyss Dungeon. Cough cough cough. A member of the Nordic Battle Division wearing black armor was hunched over, weakly moving forward along the dim corridor. Stop. The two Nordic Battle Division guards standing at the end of the corridor suddenly spoke. The weak man slowly stopped. Who are you? Which branch? One guard suspiciously scanned the weak man before him. Nordic Battle Division, 4th Branch, ID 39180. The weak man raised his hand and gently waved it. The two guards felt their vision blur momentarily as a black token appeared out of nowhere. They took the token and examined it carefully as the weak man continued. Lord Loki has some questions for the prisoner in the deep dungeon, so he sent me to interrogate. The two guards confirmed the token was genuine and returned it to the weak man, their expressions softening somewhat. Brother, with your body injured like this, you still have to question prisoners for Lord Loki? Wasn't there an outer god assassin outside last night? I got a bit injured during the raid, but it's nothing serious. The weak man took back the token, forced a smile and continued along the dim corridor. This time the two guards didn't stop him but instead stepped back, making way for him. The weak man walked along the corridor for about 10 minutes, passing through 3 such checkpoints consecutively. As he went deeper, the torches burning on both sides gradually turned eerie green, and the temperature dropped rapidly. The rough stone bricks beneath his feet were even covered with frost. Hiss. A heavy breathing sound came from above the corridor, and the surrounding temperature dropped further. The weak man looked up and saw a massive black-purple creature standing like a mountain peak on a suspended circular platform above the high walls on both sides. Its ferocious head, half the size of a football field, extended from the platform with needle-like hair swaying rhythmically with each bellows-like breath. It was a wolf. The guardian of the abyss, Loki's offspring, the demon wolf Fenrir. Although only half its head extended from the platform, its shadow already covered the entire corridor. Its crimson giant eyes stared fixedly at the weak man, pupils slightly contracting as if trying to identify something. Facing such a terrifying giant wolf, the weak man wasn't flustered. After a moment of silence, he actually reached out his hand toward the strands of Fenrir's fur. In the dim, eerie green firelight, the weak man's pale face flickered slightly, transforming into Loki's appearance. Seeing this, Fenrir suddenly raised its head, carefully sniffed the outstretched palm, and the hostility in its eyes quickly faded. It even actively moved toward the hand, its expression quite pleased. The weak man's hand stroked the demon wolf Fenrir for a moment before he turned and continued toward the depths of the dungeon. In the eerie green firelight, the man's face changed again, returning to his previous pale and weak appearance. Soon he arrived at a heavily guarded cell. I need to interrogate him alone. Please step aside for now. The weak man pointed at the figure imprisoned in the depths of the cell, took out a token and spoke to the Nordic Battle Division members standing guard. Loki's token? One guard frowned, hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, I need to ask for instructions from the prison god and Lord Vidar. This prisoner is a major criminal brought back by Lord Thor. Even Lord Loki doesn't have the authority to question him. Hearing this, the weak man raised an eyebrow. Perhaps you misread it. This is Lord Thor's written order. As he spoke, the token in his hand flickered, strangely transforming into a light blue paper with several lines of writing. Between the strokes, one could even see traces of lightning. The guard's gaze suddenly became unfocused, dazed for half a second before coming back to his senses. He stared at the paper for a long time, then nodded. All right, be quick. He waved his hand lightly, and the Nordic Battle Division members guarding the cell quickly withdrew, leaving a quiet area. The weak man watched them leave. The light blue paper in his hand flickered again, turning into an old dark gold lady's pocket watch, which he tucked back into his pocket. Cough, cough, cough. He weakly coughed a few times, used the key to open the cell door and stepped inside. In the dim prison, a silver-haired woman stained with blood was suspended by iron chains piercing her limbs, each attached to 4 different lightning pillars. A black shackle locked her fair neck, fixing her head in place. Ferocious fangs existed bizarrely at the end of the shackle's chain, frantically devouring the air like a living creature. The woman's body was covered in bloody marks. Deep red blood droplets ran down her bare feet, dripping onto the rough stone bricks, forming a pool of blood. Her messy hair was stuck to her cheeks with dried blood, making her features almost indiscernible. The weak man's brows furrowed slightly. His peripheral vision swept the surroundings. Various grim and ferocious torture instruments were still stained with warm blood. She must have just been interrogated not long ago. Almost as soon as she heard the weak man's footsteps entering, Jean Yen raised her lowered head slightly. A gaze penetrated through her messy hair, falling on him, and she laughed coldly. What? Couldn't get what you wanted, so you're increasing the torture. The weak man looked at Jean Yen's badly wounded body and spoke bitterly. It's me. He reached out and wiped his face, and the man's appearance disappeared, replaced by the pale, ordinary face of a young girl. Xiaonan. Jean Yen was slightly startled at this sight. Why are you here? I heard Thor captured the leader of the Shangxie Society and imprisoned her in the deepest level of the Abyss Dungeon, so I came to rescue you immediately, Si Xiaonan smiled. The demon wolf guarding the upper dungeon is Loki's offspring. I only needed to use his divine ruins to fabricate tricks, to easily deceive it. Besides, I know this place very well. Hearing this, Jean Yen's gaze gradually softened. As expected of Xiaonan. By the way, have you seen Lin Qie? Lin Qie. Si Xiaonan was surprised. No, is he in Asgard too? He came in with me, but he's not being held here. I don't know how he's doing now. He changed his identity, so it's normal that you don't know about him. Jean Yen thought for a moment. But with his intelligence he should escape soon. By the way, did you receive what I had someone bring to you? I did. Si Xiaonan nodded firmly. You did it perfectly without any flaws. Hee, who do you think I am? Jean Yen grinned, but it seemed to pull at her wounds and she quickly began coughing violently. Don't move, I'll get you down right now. Si Xiaonan, seeing this, was about to step toward Jean Yen. No, don't. Jean Yen immediately spoke up, her expression serious. Thank you for your kindness, but I can't leave yet. Lin Qie easily passed through the guards in front of the dungeon and headed straight down into the depths. Under the effect of absolute concealment, this process was even easier than he had imagined. Neither the guards stationed near the dungeon nor the wolf Fenrir resting on the platform above detected his presence. He was like a ghost silently passing through layer after layer of security. During this time, Lin Qie even had a moment to check the Holy Grail in Mumu's belly. So far, Lin Qie had made 3 wishes with the Holy Grail. One to strengthen his disguise, one to locate Sif, and the current one for absolute concealment. Although there were 3 wishes, the consumed crimson liquid added up to less than 1/10 of the total. After all, these were highly targeted small wishes. Compared to the previous Sumerian deity directly resurrecting Gilgamesh, these were much smaller in scale and consumed far less. Through several practical applications, Lin Qie had vaguely figured out the pattern of making wishes with the Holy Grail. The more vague and extraordinary the wish, the more liquid it consumed. The more specific the wish, the less it consumed. For example, in this rescue operation, if Lin Qie had directly wished for Jean Yen to escape captivity, though feasible, it would have consumed at least 5 or 6 times more liquid than now, because achieving the vague goal of Jean Yen's escape would require numerous intermediate steps, such as remotely infusing Jean Yen with divine power to break through cages and shackles, or directly eliminating most of the Nordic forces in the dungeon, or having a divinely empowered Jean Yen forcibly break through the encirclement of several deities and the wolf Fenrir to escape. Each of these steps would consume enormous power. For Lin Qie now, his wish was very specific, just to conceal his form. How to infiltrate the dungeon and rescue Jean Yen were tasks he would actively accomplish himself. Lin Qie put the Holy Grail back into Mumu's body and was following the dungeon map drawn by Eden in his memory to find Jean Yen's location when a figure approached him from the corridor. Lin Qie immediately became alert. Cough, cough, cough. It was a very weak man. He said something to the guards nearby and then turned to leave the dungeon. He passed by Lin Qie without noticing his presence and quickly disappeared at the end of the dungeon. Lin Qie watched him leave, a hint of confusion rising in his mind. Judging from the man's posture, he seemed to be injured. So why would he enter the dungeon? Most importantly, the direction he came from was exactly where Jin Yan's cell was located. Lin Chia pondered for a long time without finding an answer. He temporarily put this question aside and quickly headed toward Jin Yan's cell. The area around the cell was empty, as if the guards stationed there had been sent away. Lin Chia easily entered the cell and walked to Jin Yan's side. When he saw the dense, horrific torture wounds on Jin Yan's body, Lin Chia's face darkened, anger appearing in his eyes. Jin Yan. He walked to her side and spoke in a low voice. Hearing her name called from nowhere, Jin Yan was startled. She looked around but couldn't find the speaker, her face full of confusion. Lin Chia? Is that you? She recognized Lin Chia's voice and also spoke in a low voice. It's me. I used the Holy Grail to become invisible. Jin Yan couldn't help but click her tongue. Little Nan just left and now you're here. It seems my popularity isn't bad. Little Nan? She came. Yes, she just left. But she disguised herself with trickery to look like an overindulgent man. Lin Chia quickly recalled the figure he had just encountered. That was Si Xiaonan. You're too badly injured. Lin Chia's gaze swept over Jin Yan's body. They've tortured you for 2 days and you haven't revealed what they want to know? Reveal? How could I possibly reveal anything? Jin Yan scoffed. With just these methods they think they can make me disclose the whereabouts of Jaller? They're underestimating me. What exactly is Jaller? It's an Asgardian divine artifact. I stole it when I was touring here last time. Now it's in Utopia. Jin Yan chuckled. All right, let me rescue you first. No need to rescue me, Jin Yan shook her head. Have you forgotten our mission? Lin Chia was stunned. If I'm rescued now, they'll immediately know there's a traitor in Asgard, and you who entered Asgard with me will definitely be suspected. Asgard is completely sealed now. Even if I escape this dungeon, I can't hide anywhere for long and will soon be discovered. At that point, with both of us locked in the dungeon, who will complete the mission, open the Rainbow Bridge and let the Daxiao gods in? Lin Chia fell silent. Jin Yan was right. If she escaped from the deep dungeon, the Norse gods would definitely conduct a carpet search of all Asgard, and he would become the primary suspect. That would be stirring up trouble. Let's leave first. Worst case, I'll change my identity later. We'll find a way, Lin Chia said seriously. Don't worry about me, Jin Yan shook her head repeatedly. My physical body is very strong and my soul is quite special. They can't directly read my memories and they certainly can't make me submit through mere physical torture. They're just wasting time on me. By staying here, I not only tie up their energy but also protect your identity from suspicion. According to Little Nan, Loki has announced he will attack the Supreme Realm in 3 days. We don't have much time left and can't risk it for my sake. I've already given you the pixel communicator and Si Xiaonan knows of your existence. Once you two meet outside working together, completing the mission shouldn't be difficult. As for me, I just need to stay here a few more days. When the Daxiao gods arrive, I'll eventually be freed. Loki wants to attack the Supreme Realm in 3 days? Lin Chia's gaze became solemn. If what Jin Yan said was true, the situation was indeed urgent. He looked at Jin Yan with complex emotions. If he guessed correctly, this was also why Si Xiaonan had left alone. Are you sure you'll be all right? Lin Chia frowned. Jin Yan snorted and replied irritably, What? You look down on me? You all just go complete the mission. This is just physical pain, what does it matter? If you really feel sorry for me, then hurry up and grow stronger and take me home sooner. Lin Chia tried to persuade her for a long time, but Jin Yan still refused to leave the prison cell. At that moment, sounds came from the end of the corridor, rapidly approaching. The guards are coming back, you should leave quickly, Jin Yan said in a low voice. Don't worry about me, I'm tough, not so easy to kill. Lin Chia looked at the guards who were getting closer, and with no other choice he said goodbye to Jin Yan and headed out along the route he came from. Lin Chia moved quickly, firstly to leave the dungeon as soon as possible to prevent complications, and secondly to catch up with Si Xiaonan who had left earlier. He walked straight out of the dungeon, scanned the surroundings and was about to look for Si Xiaonan's path when he heard several thunderous booms from the distance. That is. Lin Chia sensed the disturbance in the divine ruins and frowned slightly. Yi? Mumu, who was being carried on Lin Chia's back, tilted her head in confusion. It's clearly divine ruins fluctuation, but no divine power appeared. It should be proxy agents fighting, Lin Chia immediately said. Mumu, don't get down yet, let's go take a look. Heya. In a state of absolute concealment, Lin Chia directly crossed the street, approaching the direction from which the sound came. As the surrounding buildings gradually thinned out, Lin Chia left the central temple complex of Asgard and directly entered a dense forest of towering trees. Like most deities in Asgard, the trees here were enormously massive. Wherever Lin Chia looked, he saw giant brown trees so thick that it would take 20 or 30 people holding hands to encircle them. The dense dark leaves resembled clouds covering the sky, and the deeper he went, the more rapidly the visibility in the dense forest decreased. Finally, Lin Chia saw several figures engaged in battle. 3 divine proxies were moving through the dense forest at an astonishing speed, like ghosts, taking turns to surround and attack the figure in the center from different positions. Si Xiaonan stood swaying in a pool of blood. Her skin exposed to the air showed faint signs of charring as if struck by lightning, while her other wounds varied. Some were from sharp weapons, others from beast bites. Her face was deathly pale, looking like she might collapse at any moment. Seeing this, the 3 figures intensified their attacks. A man completely wrapped in a brown robe shifted his form, instantly rising up and transforming into a giant bear over 100 meters tall, its head pushing through the dense leaf clouds. The next moment, a pair of snow-white giant paws carrying terrifying cold air swept down like an avalanche toward Si Xiaonan's head. Si Xiaonan gritted her teeth, quickly sketching several black threads around her body, weaving a trick that made her appear 100 meters away in the blink of an eye, avoiding the terrifying attack. Cough, cough, cough. Having escaped death, Si Xiaonan showed no joy but instead coughed violently. Give up, Si Xiaonan, today you will certainly die. A tall man with red hair and blue eyes walked unhurriedly from the grove, sneering. Loki doesn't care about your life or death, and you've made an enemy of Thor. You're now like an abandoned dog with no one in all of Asgard to protect you. It's time to settle our old grudges. He extended his right hand, flicking his fingertips, and a light spread like a tide from beneath his feet, enveloping the immobilized Si Xiaonan. As he virtually gripped his hand, swords of light thrust up from the ground, surging toward Si Xiaonan's form like a thorny cage. She retreated quickly despite her injuries but was still cut by several sword edges, her blood spilling continuously, forming another pool of blood. A sword of light slashed past and Si Xiaonan's legs gave way, causing her to fall backward. She seemed to have lost all strength, breathing weakly, and anyone could see her life force rapidly fading away. He was about to die soon. She slowly closed her eyes as if accepting her fate. At the same time, a small black-skinned woman suddenly jumped out from the giant tree canopy above Si Xiaonan, darting toward her throat like a bolt of lightning. Just as the woman was about to touch Si Xiaonan's throat, Si Xiaonan, who had seemed on the verge of death, suddenly opened her eyes. Her right hand, which she had been hiding behind her back, shot up rapidly with a dagger gripped in her palm, slashing the small woman's neck with astonishing speed. Blood splattered all over Si Xiaonan. The triumphant smile on the small woman's face gradually froze, her eyes filled with anger and confusion. She couldn't understand how Si Xiaonan, who had been near death just moments ago, could suddenly unleash such terrifying combat power. Was she deceiving me? The moment this thought appeared in the small woman's mind, her breathing stopped, and she fell heavily into the pool of blood in front of Si Xiaonan. Si Xiaonan, having killed a proxy with one strike, gripped her dagger and stood up shakily from the pool of blood, looking at the red-haired, blue-eyed man with an ice-cold gaze. File, to think you're the proxy of the god of light, yet you act so viciously. If you have the courage, fight me one-on-one. I won't fall for your tricks, Si Xiaonan, the light god's proxy. File snorted coldly. You have too many schemes. If I fought you one-on-one, I might fall into another of your traps. As long as I can kill you, what's wrong with using numbers to win? You've reached the end of your rope. Is that so? Si Xiaonan sneered, kicking the small woman's corpse in front of her. If that's the case, why don't you come kill me yourself? File's expression grew darker. He glanced at the giant bear beside him and said flatly, "Lister, kill her." Roar. A mighty roar came from above, and 2 huge bear paws whistled down toward the immobilized Si Xiaonan. The howling cold wind swept across the ground, instantly covering it with a thick layer of frost. Si Xiaonan's movements immediately slowed down, and even the weaving speed of her tricks decreased. Just as she was feeling desperate, a blade light suddenly burst forth from the seemingly empty space in front of her, meeting those mountain-toppling giant bear paws, cutting through them like a knife through tofu, cleanly severing them at the wrists. The moment this blade light appeared, both Si Xiaonan and File in the distance were stunned. "There's actually someone helping you. You really were hiding something." File roared in anger. The blade light didn't stop after cutting off the bear paws but continued sideways, slicing the giant bear's body in half from bottom to top. Lin Chia held, white slash in one hand, with Mumu's bandages unfurling behind him, shooting out two flames as he slowly descended to the ground. His monocle reflected a cold light, and his golden hair fluttered in the wind. Seeing this somewhat familiar face, Si Xiaonan seemed to recall something. Number 33? Miles. Si Xiaonan had seen Miles's appearance when she disguised herself as number 01 at the proxy meeting. Lin Chia glanced at her and smiled slightly. "The green flower of the other shore will eventually bloom, and even winter cannot bury it. Isn't that right, Xiaonan?" Si Xiaonan's pupils suddenly contracted. "So you are..." Si Xiaonan stared at Miles's profile in a daze, a bitter smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. This sudden change made Phil frown deeply. He stared at that unfamiliar face as if remembering something. "Are you Miles, the representative of the god of prophecy and magic that Thor brought back?" Lin Chia calmly replied, "It's me. This matter has nothing to do with you." Phil stood in a patch of light and spoke coldly. "If you don't want to die, don't get involved. If you die, Thor will give me trouble." Lin Chia shook his head and pointed to the blood-covered Si Xiaonan. "Her I'm taking with me." Phil glanced at Si Xiaonan, narrowing his eyes. "What if I don't allow it?" Lin Chia didn't speak, just silently gripped the handle of Zhan Bai, the sharp blade light reflecting in the pool of blood. At the same time, the giant bear that Lin Chia had cut in half with one sword strike quickly shrank and transformed back into the man's form from before. The body that had been cut in half rejoined, and the blood mark at the center of the body gradually disappeared. To avoid exposing his identity, Lin Chia hadn't used the Kusanagi sword. After all, a representative of the god of magic holding Japan's Takamagara's first divine weapon would be too suspicious. "Phil, do we continue?" Lister asked in a deep voice. Phil stared intently at Lin Chia and Si Xiaonan behind him. After hesitating for a moment, his eyes still flashed with reluctant killing intent. "Yes. Asgard will fall into Loki's hands sooner or later anyway. If we kill him now, we just need to hide for a while and Thor won't be able to do anything to us." As his words fell, Phil took out a gray stone tablet from his pocket and forcefully inserted it into the ground. An invisible domain instantly expanded, covering Lin Chia, Si Xiaonan, and the dense forest within a 5-kilometer radius. Lin Chia felt his vision blur, and everything around him was covered in an ethereal gray veil. A surging gray barrier like an inverted bowl covered overhead, making the sky and morning light dim. "What is this thing?" Lin Chia frowned. "It's a fragment of the gray-white arena." Si Xiaonan's weak voice came from behind him. This was originally a divine artifact from ancient Roman mythology. When fully activated, it could drag any number of specified targets within thousands of miles into an alternate space, isolating all time and space. They fight to the death until only one survivor remains in the arena, then it opens. Even the highest gods would be trapped without exception. It can even trap the highest gods? How did he get such a powerful divine artifact? Lin Chia's expression changed. "What he has is just a corner fragment of the gray-white arena," Si Xiaonan slowly explained. "This divine artifact shattered into 7 or 8 pieces hundreds of years ago due to an accident. The fragments vary in size and the one in his hand is probably one of the smallest pieces, with a coverage of only 5 kilometers. However, it's more than enough to trap us. Since he's brought this out, he's clearly determined to kill me." Lin Chia stood in front of Si Xiaonan watching the two men approaching, his eyebrows slightly raised. "You just said this place isolates all time and space and they can't escape either, right?" "That's right. Then this is easy." Lin Chia gripped the void with his right hand, and with a flash of magical light, the Kusanagi sword appeared in his hand. Holding the Kusanagi sword in one hand and Tunbai in the other, points of magical light dispersed from his body, and Miles's appearance receded, gradually revealing his original form. Seeing this, Si Xiaonan gritted her teeth and struggled to stand up from the pool of blood, about to help Lin Chia fight, but was held back by his hand. You rest. I can handle these too. That Phil is the representative of the God of Light, very powerful, ranking third among the 10 Imperial Guards. The other man is called Lister, and although he's not among the 10 Imperial Guards, his strength is not weak either. Be careful. Si Xiaonan said worriedly. Lin Chia nodded, his form transforming into a streak of night, racing along the tree shadows cast in the dense forest. You're not Miles. Lister saw this and was shocked. Who exactly are you? Be careful, he's coming your way. Phil sensed ripples in the light beneath his feet and immediately warned Lister. Before his words finished, Lin Chia's form flashed out from the tree shadow behind Lister, darting like lightning toward his neck. Lister reacted extremely quickly, instantly transforming into a patterned leopard wreathed in electric light, avoiding the strike with a change in height. Lister's gaze focused, killing intent erupting as an electric leopard claw violently slashed at Lin Chia's lower abdomen overhead. The sharp claw tip tore through Lin Chia's skin but seemed to hit an ink stain, dissolving and dispersing as if it had never appeared. A fake. Lister was stunned. The next moment, from the void at his side, a blade light ignored space and hummed as it cut into his back. Lin Chia's form appeared. As the night essence within Lin Chia gradually matured, more and more divine abilities were cultivated, and his aura began to approach that of Nyx, the goddess of night. The afterimage that had just confused Lister's senses was an ability derived from the night essence, Night Shadow Clone. Lin Chia's blade cut into Lister's back, immediately leaving a wound deep enough to see bone. The patterned leopard wreathed in electric light howled in pain, its form changing again, instantly becoming a silver thorny hedgehog. The original flesh body changed into a metal-hard shell, firmly gripping Lin Chia's sunbai, while countless sharp silver thorns rapidly extended toward Lin Chia's face. Lin Chia snorted coldly, sidestepping the silver thorns, and swung the Kusanagi sword in his other hand toward the hedgehog's head. Under the Kusanagi sword's edge, the supposedly impenetrable shell was like paper made of tofu paste. With just a light cut, the thorny hedgehog's head was chopped off, and its massive body suddenly shuddered and collapsed to the ground. After being beheaded, the hedgehog's body began to return to its original form. The rolling head regained Lister's original appearance, looking at Lin Chia behind him in terror. What kind of sword is that? You don't need to know. Lin Chia calmly walked to the head and softly recited a poem. Boom. Earth-shattering flames erupted from within Lister's body, instantly engulfing him. Piercing screams gradually weakened in the firelight, finally returning to silence. Lin Chia, holding a knife in one hand and a sword in the other, stood before the roaring flames and turned indifferently to look at Phil in the distance. Lin Chia's process of killing Lister could be described as an instant kill. In contrast, Phil, who witnessed Lister die at Lin Chia's hands, narrowed his eyes with an unpleasant expression. He stepped forward, his form dissolving into the scattered golden light pool on the ground. The next moment, several human-shaped silhouettes standing in the light rose around Lin Chia, radiating brilliance that illuminated every corner of the dark forest. Under this light, the darkness beneath Lin Chia's feet began to rapidly dissolve. This is the aura of the night goddess. The human-shaped silhouettes around Lin Chia simultaneously exclaimed in surprise. Then, as if realizing something, they shouted. I understand now, you're the dual god agent from Great Xia. You're a spy who infiltrated Asgard. Several thick crescent beams of light shot out, slashing toward Lin Chia's body from all directions. The latter stood in place, showing no intention to dodge. His lips curled slightly upward as he smiled and said, Now that you know, it's already too late. Amidst the sky full of crescents, Lin Chia raised his right foot and stomped heavily on the scattered golden light pool below. Terminus King's Law. Boom. An invisible domain instantly enveloped all the light beneath his feet. As he raised his fingertip, those thick crescents flying from all directions suddenly rotated strangely in midair, then flew straight toward one of the human-shaped silhouettes standing at the edge. Simultaneously, Phil, who had been hiding within, changed expression dramatically. The divine ruins beneath his feet seemed to lose control, forcibly pushing his true form out of the light, causing him to stagger backward. watching those light crescents coming toward him. His eyes were filled with terror and confusion. How is this possible? You can control my divine ruins. Phil's form transformed into light, soaring upward to avoid the crescent attacks. But as Lin Chia raised his fingertips again, the calm light pool within 10 meters beneath his feet suddenly began to stir, as if completely breaking free from Phil's control. Countless shining sword bodies took shape, shooting densely toward the sky. With the deployment of Terminus King's Law, Lin Chia had taken control of part of the light divine ruins beneath his feet. Although the vast majority of control still remained with Phil, with just this rebellious portion of the light divine ruins, Lin Chia could firmly suppress Phil's abilities. Phil's expression was extremely unpleasant. He didn't know how Lin Chia had tricked Thor to infiltrate Asgard, nor how he managed to control his abilities in return. But thinking about these things now was meaningless. In this gray-white arena, only the final winner could leave. Either he killed Lin Chia or Lin Chia killed him. A resolute light flashed in Phil's eyes. A strand of light burst from around his body, shattering the light swords shot by Lin Chia, and then his form expanded violently with the wind. In the gray-white world covered with gray gauze, Phil's rapidly expanding form was like a radiant sun, instantly transforming into a light giant hundreds of meters tall, standing up from the tall forest. Rows of pure white light rings appeared from nothingness, floating behind him, sacred and majestic. What is this? As the hurricane howled, Lin Chia looked up at the figure shrouded in endless light, his brows slightly furrowed. He's using divine law to imitate and evolve the light god, Si Xiaonan weakly spoke. Be careful, he's very powerful in this state. Light god? Lin Chia shrugged, speaking nonchalantly, doesn't look that impressive. His eyes narrowed slightly, a brilliant magical light bloomed beneath his feet, black pupils enveloped his body, and a crimson eye opened from his brow, taking control of his body. He lightly touched his brow with his fingertip, and a phantom soul walked out from his physical body. In an instant, spiritual energy surged between heaven and earth, and the swirling wind and sand made the entire forest rustle. Divine law, I have it too. As Lin Chia's words fell, amidst the sky full of wind and sand, a towering divine image slowly rose from the ground. This divine image stood on starlight, held a long sword, and was nearly 10 meters taller than Phil's light god. Its deep red cloak was like a blood-stained night curtain, covering the entire gray sky. The endless light and deep red night curtain almost divided the entire gray-white arena into two areas, fiercely invading and rubbing against each other. The two huge figures like mountains crashed into each other simultaneously. Boom boom boom. Deafening roars filled the sky. The severely injured Si Xiaonan leaned against a giant tree, her form blown back and forth by the shock waves and gales. Her eyes fixed on Lin Chia in the distance. A faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth as she murmured, Lung Xian, you can't imagine how strong Seven Knight is now. If the captain could see this, he would be very happy too, right? In her mind, she recalled the scene of Lin Chia when he first joined the Night Watchers, being beaten black and blue under Chen Mai's devil training. Unexpectedly, several years had passed, and that rookie who knew nothing had grown to the point where he could fight evenly with the top Klein powerhouses. Si Xiaonan recalled those precious memories stored in the deepest part of her mind, and after a long while, let out a long sigh. The roaring in the distance gradually weakened. Phil, who had transformed into the light god, was repeatedly forced back by Lin Chia's divine image, and several divine rings behind him showed signs of collapse. This is impossible, this is impossible. Phil spoke in disbelief. How can a dual god agent be so strong? This is different from the rumors. Don't believe rumors, don't spread rumors. Lin Chia said calmly, and the Kusanagi sword in his hand slashed down fiercely. Under the control of Terminus King's Law, the light protecting Phil's body automatically parted to both sides, allowing the blade to cut through the light god's body and precisely strike Phil's body surface. A large amount of blood splattered out and the towering light god shattered inch by inch. Phil's form fell from the sky, crashing heavily onto the ground. Lin Chia's tall divine image looked down at Phil's fallen form, gripped the Kusanagi sword in reverse and thrust it down fiercely. The BLC Zionanade pierced through Phil's heart. His eyes fixed on Lin Chia's pupils, gradually becoming unfocused, The unwillingness and confusion in his eyes had not yet faded before being eternally frozen. Light God's agent Phil, dead. Lin Chia dispersed his divine image, his soul returning to his body. After glancing at Phil's corpse and confirming his death, he spoke with confusion. Why hasn't the arena disappeared yet? Looked at him, speaking with complexity. I told you only one person can walk out of this arena alive. Now there are still 2 people in here. Hearing these words, Lin Chia's brows furrowed tightly. What do you mean? One of us has to die for this to work. Lin Chia firmly shook his head. That's impossible. Wait, I'll use Holy Grail to get you out. As Lin Chia took out Mumu and was about to speak, Si Xiaonan interrupted him. The king's Holy Grail requires a sacrifice each time it's used. You should save it for critical moments. Don't worry, I just need to die briefly. Lin Chia. Si Xiaonan weakly explained, I can create a trick to deceive my body, making my physiological functions enter a death state. After we leave this place, I can undo it and revive. It should last about 10 seconds. Fake death isn't difficult for me. Lin Chia looked at her in astonishment. Will that really work? Won't something go wrong? It won't. Si Xiaonan gripped the dagger in her hand as a strand of black thread emerged from her heart, rapidly weaving something. See you outside the arena. A smile appeared on her pale lips as she suddenly plunged the dagger into her own heart. Her body shuddered and crimson blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. Lin Chia instinctively wanted to stop her, but it was too late. As her eyes gradually became unfocused, her heart finally fell silent. In the gray world, only Lin Chia remained standing, staring blankly at Si Xiaonan's body lying in a pool of blood. Bang! A soft sound came from the sky. The gray-veiled firmament shattered like broken glass, crumbling piece by piece. Everything around Lin Chia began to distort. Detecting that only Lin Chia remained as the sole survivor in this world, the gray arena automatically disengaged. Lin Chia felt a spinning sensation before his form returned to the dense forest. The destruction caused during his battle with Phil seemed to have never happened. Tall trees swayed in the wind, making rustling sounds. Not far away on the ground, several proxy corpses lay in disarray, completely lifeless. Lin Chia's eyes were fixed intently on Si Xiaonan, who also appeared completely dead. His heart was in his throat. He counted the seconds in his mind. When he reached the 10th second, the black rune on Si Xiaonan's chest suddenly shattered. The trick broke and the dagger wound in her heart disappeared as if it had never existed. Her heart began to beat slowly again. Si Xiaonan's eyes flew open as she gasped for air, her face completely devoid of color. Her eyes slowly moved to look at Lin Chia, who sighed in relief beside her. She smiled and said, 7, can you carry me on your back? I can't move a single finger. Without a word, Lin Chia lifted Si Xiaonan onto his back. After scanning her body with his mental power, his expression turned grave. Why are your injuries so severe? It's a long story. Si Xiaonan's voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz next to Lin Chia's ear. Her eyes closed involuntarily. I need to sleep for a while. Before she finished speaking, Si Xiaonan's head drooped as she fell into a deep sleep. After confirming that her life wasn't in immediate danger, Lin Chia let out a long breath. Carrying Si Xiaonan on his back, he picked up the gray arena fragment from Phil's corpse nearby and fed it to Mumu. Since it was a fragment of a divine artifact, it would surely be useful someday. Having done all this, Lin Chia first cast a transformation spell on himself, applying perfect disguise, before carrying Si Xiaonan and quickly heading out of the dense forest. Mist. Above the turbulent sea surface, a pixel-style cruise ship cut through the waves, slowly advancing in the darkness. We're almost there. In the cabin, the knight held a map in his hand, his gaze fixed on the sea beyond the glass as he spoke solemnly. Is this Asgard? Zhang Er asked curiously. No, this is the entrance to Asgard's human circle, the knight shook his head and said. Human circle? But weren't Seven and Genian taken to Asgard? Why are we going to the human circle? Asgard is the divine realm of the Norse gods. We certainly can't enter from the front. And Qingyu pushed up his glasses and explained seriously. That place is not like the abandoned heaven and hell, nor is it like the fallen Takamagara. Asgard houses hundreds of deities. Rashly entering from the front would be no different from walking into a trap. That's right, and the chairman left a message before leaving that the Bifrost, the only passage between Asgard and the outside world, has been closed. Even if we wanted to enter through the main gate, we couldn't. We can only detour through the human circle. The knight paused, then continued. This route is also more advantageous for us. After all, our upper evil society has infiltrated the human circles of various divine realms over the years. By taking the human circle route, we have a better chance of avoiding detection by the Norse gods. But even so, we still need to enter Asgard, Bailey Pang Pang reminded them. How are we going to rescue Seven and the others from the Norse divine realm? Do you have a plan? And Qingyu turned to look at the knight, seemingly waiting for his response. Since the upper evil society dared to propose rescuing people from Asgard, they must have something to rely on. Otherwise, all of them combined wouldn't be enough for 2 or 3 deities to kill. The knight pondered for a moment, then turned to look toward the bow of the Pixel ship. On the foremost deck of the cruise ship, 4 figures stood silently in the mist, gazing at the distant sea. They varied in height and build, with black coat tails fluttering in the wind. Their only common feature was that they all wore different pale masks. One with a smiling face, one with a crying face, one with an angry face, and one with a sorrowful face. Who are they? Chao Yuan asked, puzzled by the terrifying aura emanating from them. They are the 4 special envoys of our upper evil society, the knight explained. Our society has 13 special envoys in total, but only the top 4 are truly top-tier powerhouses, the strongest fighters below the chairman. The 4 of them together might even defeat the chairman. And Qingyu raised an eyebrow. Power comparable to humanity's ceiling-level strength is indeed rare, but forgive me for saying, it's far from enough for what we need to do. I know. The knight nodded and walked to a certain spot on the deck, solemnly retrieving a black box half as tall as a person from a hidden compartment. He placed the black box on the table and pressed the latch. The lid of the box automatically popped open. A huge dark golden horn lay quietly inside. This is, Bailey Pang Pang asked curiously. This is Asgard's supreme, divine artifact, Horn.